This is very interesting story. Listen carefully, you can call me B27, don't ask why. But when I was younger, maybe 5 or 6, I experienced something so strange, so terrifying, that it still lingers in my mind like a whisper in the dark. I was playing in the shallow part of the water, not because I couldn't swim, but because I liked the feeling of rolling in the cool waves, letting the water embrace me. My memory is fractured, shattered into pieces for reasons I don't fully understand, but I remember this part vividly. As I played, something changed. A heavy, sinking feeling crept into me. Sadness. No, something worse. An overwhelming unease, like unseen eyes were watching, pressing in from all sides. I tried to shake it off, but the weight of it clung to me. My chest tightened. I wanted to cry. And then, just as suddenly as it came, the feeling slipped away. I laughed, pretending it never happened. But then, I touched it. At first, I thought it was a mask. My fingers curled into the eye sockets, the hollowness sending a shiver up my spine. But as I pulled it from the water, I realized this wasn't just a mask. Grass and weeds clung to it, tangled like forgotten memories. The texture was sickening, wet, rough, yet unmistakably solid. Bone, flattened, smoothed, shaped into something unnatural. The front of a skull, carved and warped into a grotesque imitation of a face. A scream caught in my throat, but nothing came out. My hands trembled, my breath hitched, my body refused to move. And in that moment, for reasons I still can't explain, I knew this wasn't meant to be found. And even now, years later, the memory clings to me like damp air before a storm. What was it? Who did it belong to? And why, when I think about it, do I still feel that same crushing, suffocating sadness? Some things are better left beneath the surface. It started one night when I was walking home alone. It was late, maybe 2 a.m., when I noticed him. A man stood under a dim streetlight, tall, thin, his head tilted at an unnatural angle. He was smiling, wide, too wide, like his face had been stretched beyond its limits. I ignored him, kept walking. But then I heard footsteps. I turned my head slightly. He was following me. Not walking normally. No, he was gliding, his feet barely touching the ground, arms limp at his sides. And the smile? It never changed. I picked up my pace. My heart pounded. But every time I glanced back, he was closer. Then suddenly he stopped. His head snapped upright, and his eyes, black, empty, locked onto mine. I turned a corner and sprinted. My apartment was close, just a few blocks. I burst through the door, slammed it shut, locked it. My hands were shaking. I took a deep breath. Silence. Then a knock. Slow, deliberate. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Then from the other side of the door, I heard a whisper. Soft, distorted, unnatural. I saw you first. Deep in the woods, there was a hole, a perfect, bottomless, black pit. No one knew how deep it went. Animals refused to go near it. Birds never flew over it. But it whispered. It started small, barely a murmur. But the longer you stood near it, the clearer the words became. Jump. Come closer. Let us in. No one who looked directly into the hole ever spoke about what they saw. Some said they felt something staring back. Others swore they saw themselves at the bottom, grinning. One night, a man from town, curious, foolish, brought a flashlight and peered inside. He didn't scream, didn't run. He just walked forward, stepped into the abyss without hesitation. The next morning, the hole was gone. Grass and soil covered the spot where it had been. No trace of him remained. But sometimes, when the wind was quiet, people swore they could still hear his voice, whispering from beneath the earth. I see you.